Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Spread, Nesson.com's Football Picks Podcast. We're back for week 2. I'm Nesson.com's Mike Cole, joined by my compadres Andre Khatchaturian and Ricky Doyle. Gentlemen, how are we?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you? I was going to call you Ricky. I don't know why.
No, that's all right. After week 1, I guess that would probably be preferable. But football's back. What did you guys think? I mean, I was kind of on the run all day Sunday, or kind of in and out, so I didn't get to see a ton of – I did not get to plant my ass in front of the TV and just watch 10 hours of football. So what were your guys' big takeaways? You know, did you enjoy the fanless experience? Was it weird? Just early week 1 takeaways.
I didn't notice the difference.
I saw people complaining. I didn't either.
I thought it was fine. I think fine is my word to describe the weekend, both from a quality of game standpoint and just like the broadcast production standpoint. Like it was all fine.
Yeah, I thought from the 4 major sports, it was the most normal because it's during a normal time period of football, and the rules aren't as mixed up like in baseball. The sport just looks different with the 60-game schedule, and for hockey and basketball, you're getting these playoffs in the fall. It's out of the ordinary, but football seemed the most normal for me.
I'm glad that the officials didn't insert themselves too much. Yeah, I thought that I thought it was going to be sloppy out of the gate.
That Cowboys-Rams games, they pretty much decided the finish.
Well, yeah, that's a good call. But I mean, from a wire-to-wire standpoint, it wasn't like an egregious amount of flags. I mean, there was some – I think it was clearly there was some rust for some of the teams offensively, but I don't know. I mean, with no preseason, just kind of being thrown into this thing, I didn't think the quality was all that bad.
No, yeah, I agree.
It was pretty much on par with what we've seen for the past few years.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it didn't feel like I think a lot of people, myself somewhat included, kind of expected it to be, you'd have delay of games or, 14 guys on the field for a punt because you can't get the special teams formation right. Yeah, it didn't seem like there was a ton of that. So I guess that's encouraging. Yeah, I'm with you. From what I saw of it, it seemed fairly normal. The crowd noise pumped in was fine. I think you will miss it. This is kind of like golf too, because when you watch it on TV, there are certain things, like the camera shots are so tight, both in golf and football, where it's like when you have the camera right on the field in football, you don't see anything else, so it's not like it matters. But I think you are going to notice it when you get a 90-yard touchdown at some point at Arrowhead or something like that, and it's 3,000 people. Like that's, I think, where you kind of notice it, but those are kind of few and far between. So the way I look at it is like, does this just feel normal for 90% of my viewing experience? I think so far, yeah. So that's a good
fairly normal. I will take that at this point.
Yeah, right.
With regards to a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know what else was normal was Ricky's domination in picks.
You said it. I didn't.
You won last year. You had the best record this week, week 1, 9-6-1 against the spread, Ricky. That's very impressive. I was second with 6-9-1, and Mike right behind me 5-10-1. So that's pretty much on par to every season.
That's not true. I won 2 years ago, so don't even start with me. Like I said before, I used some choice words before we came on here. I won't repeat myself. It feels, you want to talk about normalcy. Getting porked by just terrible plays late in the game it feels good to be back. I'll get into some of those maybe as we go on and we talk about some teams here, but yeah, good job.
I really laid an egg on the Sunday night and Monday night as well, so that didn't help my cause.
Sunday night game got me in that Lions-Bears, that drop pass by DeAndre Swift. It still hurts.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other stuff that completely porked me, and it is what it is. It's on me.
Hey,
I feel like an idiot. I don't feel good.
We've got 16 more of these weeks. So.
That's true.
That Vegas-Carolina game, that was –
Oh, that was the other one. So Vegas covered, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I was on Carolina, and I felt good about that one. So
Carolina scored late, and then Vegas came back and scored right again. And
yeah, right. That's tough. Yeah, because I saw that score late. I was like, oh, wow, could actually cover that. But not to be. So, all right, let's get into week 2 here. As usual. Oh, by the way, I want to get this out of the way. If you're watching on YouTube, stop what you're doing, pick up your phone, go to your favorite podcast provider, and subscribe to our podcast. We're on iTunes and Spotify. Nesson the Spread. Rate, review, make it seem like you enjoy our work. That is all we're really looking for at this point. Continue to watch on YouTube as well, but we can be found on those places as well. Then you can take us in the car with you. You can take us for a walk. You can take us in the shower.
What would be better than that?
So inclined.
Shower. Wow.
Yeah.
The beach.
The beach. You can take us to the beach. There's still beach weather, I guess.
In parts of the country.
Yeah. So, like I said, especially if you're watching on YouTube and you're a big podcast guy or gal, hop on over to iTunes, Spotify, subscribe, rate, review, and enjoy us at your will throughout the rest of the season. So, all right, let's get into it. We'll do the 3 what we consider the best games of the weekend. I would say this week was the slate's not as good, but whatever. And then we'll do locks and upsets. So let's start Sunday afternoon with a game that seems like, black and blue bowl, whatever you want to call it. It feels like a nice mid-90s matchup, but we've got the Denver Broncos going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Both teams coming off of Monday night games. The Steelers beat the Giants in fairly convincing fashion. That's another one, by the way. Daniel Jones, don't throw an interception at the end zone.
Bad. Yeah.
Maybe we cover that spread too. But the Steelers host the Broncos. Broncos coming off of a tough loss on Monday night to the Titans. Steelers 6.5-point favorites. Total sits at 41. It's gonna be warm in Pittsburgh this weekend. Mid 80s, humid. A little Indian summer for the folks of Western Pennsylvania. Let's see, Ricky, who do you got in this one?
This is a good, nice mid-90s clash. I'm picturing a lot of high shoulder pads.
Yeah.
A lot of devastating hits to the head. Flag now. So all right. So we just saw Pittsburgh's defense completely overmatch a sophomore quarterback on the road, and I really have no reason to believe that they're not going to do the same to another sophomore quarterback at home. I don't know, that Denver offense, I didn't really like much of what I saw from them at all on Monday night, even though that game was played at about 3 a.m, it felt like. And I was just so exhausted from football at that point. But, yeah, I mean, I could just see Pittsburgh, their team coming into this season, obviously like what they do defensively. I thought Roethlisberger was a little rusty early on, but showed in that second half what he's capable of doing for that offense. And like I said, with Denver's offense, I just wonder if coaching is going to hold them back a little bit. Obviously, Vic Fangio being the defensive-minded coach that he is, bringing Pat Shurmur, it just didn't seem like they were clicking a whole lot. I think a lot of it is due to the fact that, I mean, look, this Denver offense might be on the right track, but I think we're expecting a lot overnight from them. I mean, they got a very, very young core. I think it's going to take a while for them to get on the same page. And in a week 2 matchup against that Pittsburgh defense, it's a decent chunk of points, but I'll lay the points and I'll take the Steelers.
I completely agree with you, Ricky. Everything you just said made sense. And Roethlisberger coming from that injury, I thought he would be a lot more shaky than he was on Monday night. 3 touchdowns.
He was early. He was early, but yeah.
He was, but he really bounced back quick.
Yep.
And, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 66% completion percentage. And
very good.
You just see how different that team is when Roethlisberger is their quarterback instead of Duck Hodges. And that team last year.
They were good last year. Yeah.
They were the 3rd best defense in terms of yards allowed per play. That defense looked unbelievable, holding Saquon Barkley to just 6 yards on 15 carries. It's very difficult to do. They allowed just 1.5 yards per carry on Monday night. And also for Denver, Vic Fangio, what was that late in the game in the 4th quarter? The Broncos got the ball back up by 1 with 7:24 left. They only took off 1 minute and 20. The Titans go 3 and out. Broncos get the ball back again with 4 minutes and 6 seconds, and they only take off 53 seconds off the clock because they passed twice on that drive. They took off no time. Titans have a long drive. They come back get into field goal range. And during that time, Fangio's not using his timeouts. What was that? That was horrible 7 minutes and 24 seconds of coaching and time clock management by Vic Fangio. You can't do that against the Steelers, against a great team like that. I'm taking the Steelers.
Fangio feels like classic example of great coordinator, just not a very good head coach. I mean,
it's so backwards from what they're seemingly trying to build.
Yeah, exactly.
They brought in, they spent so much draft capital on these offensive weapons, and yet they have him as the head coach. Like, it's all sort of feels out of whack. It also feels a little premature too I mean, what was it? What did Locke make? 5 starts last year? And all of a sudden they're just sort of, anointing this as being his franchise. I mean, maybe he evolves into a decent quarterback, but a lot of what they did last year was, plays behind the line of scrimmage, little screen plays, and now all of a sudden they're just going to take the top off the defense. Like, it's a little weird, but sorry, go ahead.
And then you look at Pat Shurmur too, like he had really good, couple of years in Philly, but other than that, he hasn't done a whole lot, Right. So it's not like they have an offensive genius leading the offense either. It's just a weird coaching staff. I'm with you guys. I'll take the Steelers here. It feels like a lot of points delay, but this week I'm kind of just saying screw it, because I still don't know if we like I don't know how good of a grasp anybody has on the lines. So I'll just take the team I like to win here, and just hope that they can cover that number. Not a great way of going about business. Not very scientific.
But it's not an egregious amount of points, though. Like, it's a good chunk, but it's like they win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I have to add here. Not a ton. The run defense thing that Andre mentioned is huge. And now you've got Denver coming in. Gordon didn't look great in his debut. Philip Lindsay has some sort of turf toe type injury, is what Fangio called it. So that's going to be an issue. Who knows if they get Cortland Sutton back. So you're going up. It's just a ton of injuries for the Broncos as well. And on the defensive side, A.J. Bouye, who's actually done a pretty nice job against Pittsburgh in the past. You go back to that playoff game when he was in Jacksonville, had a nice game. He looks like he dislocated his shoulder, so he's probably almost certainly not going to play. And that's huge going up against a team. Again, Pittsburgh, they continue to do it with the receivers. It's insane.
Unbelievable. Chase Claypool was.
Yeah.
And
I do like the addition of Eric Ebron. I think is going to kind of go under the radar. Like, Ben's been at his best when he's had pretty dependable tight ends. Ebron made a great catch last night. It was like a stretch route over the going left to right. It was earlier in that game. It gives them another element there. So Fangio is going to have something ready for them, but I do think there's just too much talent on Pittsburgh's side. And I think the Broncos injuries continue to be an issue. So without Von Miller, maybe not Mark Barron as well, I think Pittsburgh's going to be able to do a lot of what it wants to on offense. So and if that's the case, Ricky, I'm with you. I don't know if that Denver offense is at a point where they can kind of keep pace in a higher scoring game. So I'll lay the points. I don't feel great about it, but I'll do it. It is what it is. So.
Nothing the Broncos did improved my outlook on them on Monday night.
I agree. And, they had no business. Again, if, Gostkowski makes his kicks, that game's a lot different. It looks a lot worse for them. So
there's a fun little stat for you. According to NFL and Next Gen Stats, there was a 1 in 1,804 chance of Gostkowski missing all 4 of those kicks. So that's 10 points they left out there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, all right. Also Sunday afternoon, a game that on paper entering the season looked great. Baltimore going to Houston to take on the Texans. The Ravens coming off just a thoroughly impressive. Well, I don't know how impressive it was. Maybe Cleveland isn't as good as I maybe think they were. I'm 1 year late on the Cleveland is good trap, so that's on me. But they, thoroughly dismantled the Browns in week 1, and now they go to play a Texans team that is coming off of an ass kicking of their own on the other side of things, where they got kind of smoked by Kansas City in that Thursday night game. Ravens on the road here 2 weeks in a row. Tough spot. Still laying 6.5 points. Andre, who do you got?
I'm going to take Baltimore until they give me a reason not to take Baltimore. They're just they're just a machine, just generating points. And Lamar Jackson, last 8 regular season games, 27 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's speaks for itself. The two teams met last year. Ravens won 41-7. I don't expect anything different this year. Houston last season allowed the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks last year. So that's not really good. Lamar Jackson is going to have a day. And Deshaun Watson, last 7 games, including the playoffs, 7 touchdowns, 6 picks. Not looking great lately. Something's been off with him, clearly. And in terms of the Texans' offensive line, they're still giving Watson some troubles because the Texans' offensive line last week gave up sack on 8.4% of dropbacks in week 1. So that Baltimore defense, don't sleep on them. They had 3 turnovers last week, and they're coming into week 2 with the best yards per play differential. That means they didn't allow a lot of yards either last week, along with gaining a lot of yards. So take Baltimore.
With these two teams, it just feels like what changed? Did anything really change from last season with either of these teams? That's what it felt like.
If anything, Houston got worse and Baltimore got better.
Exactly. And that whole operation in Houston just feels kind of stale at this point. And I don't know, like, you mentioned the numbers with Deshaun Watson and how he's just looked out of sync. I'm not even pinning a lot of it on him. Like, that offense just looks like, I don't know if it's just an unwillingness to sort of to air it out. Like, it just feels very, for the talent that they have, it doesn't seem as aggressive as it should be. But
doesn't really have that many weapons anymore after Hopkins is gone.
I mean, you got some guy, Will Fuller and Kenny Stills, like guys that theoretically should be burners. Like, they're not trustworthy, but like, I would like to take a look, more shots down the field than they are taking. So it just, I don't know. The whole thing, it seems like it's in need of a change, and it probably starts at the coaching position. But I'm with you. Until I have a reason to not pick the Ravens, I should probably just roll with them at this point. We already, this is really, I don't think any home field advantage in this matchup. I mean, especially if you look back to last year what the Ravens did on the road. I mean, 59-10 over the Dolphins, 49-13 over the Bengals, 45-6 over the Rams. So this is a team that's capable of going on the road, putting up huge numbers. I mentioned this last week in our picks column, but the Texans defense, just if you look at their drive stats, just absolutely horrendous last year. 31st in yards allowed per drive. Only 5 teams with a combined 25-54-1 record allowed more points per drive. Meanwhile, the Baltimore offense obviously just at the top in nearly every single offensive statistical category. So it's one of these things where I don't know. Like, I tried to almost find a reason to take the Texans just on the off chance that something wacky happens, but everything points to Baltimore in this game. And so, if I lose by backing the team that looks like one of the best in the NFL, so be it.
Yeah, like, the fluky thing is Deshaun Watson just turns into Superman for a week, and that's
it, right?
Yeah, it's possible, it's conceivable, but this is one of those ones too where it's like, in a normal year with crowds and everything, maybe I look at Baltimore and say, starting the 2 weeks in a row, or no, they didn't start the road. I'm just gonna say they were at home last week, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, so I misspoke on that earlier. So even then, going out on the road for the first time, Harbaugh's so good at having his team ready to play. I don't think they get too high coming off of a division win last week. I'm also taking the Ravens here. Again, it's another one too. Maybe, and I guess the number probably changes in a regular year, but 6.5 on the road this year certainly feels a lot different than years past. That probably goes without saying. But you look at, I'm just kind of going through my notes. Cleveland last week did a pretty decent job. They took away the run game, relatively speaking. That was technically, I think, Baltimore still ran for 100-plus yards, but it was the lowest rushing total that the Ravens have had in Lamar Jackson's 23 career starts. I think I saw that on NFL.com. They still scored 38 points. That's insanity. I think third down is going to be a big issue for Houston as well. They were just 4 of 10 last week. Meanwhile, the Ravens held the Browns to 3 of 12. I think that's one place where you really feel the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. Brandon Cooks already hurt hamstring. He's kind of up in the air. Duke Johnson also hurt, so that's another element of their offense that could be gone. Again, You go back to that game last year, 6 sacks for the Ravens defense. Andre kind of touched on this as well. Here's another way to put it. Sean Watson pressured on 45.5% of his dropbacks last week, according to Pro Football Focus. That's a huge number. I mean, that's basically every other dropback he's got pressure. And when you have nobody else to throw to, bad things are going to happen. I think that kind of explains why his numbers haven't been as good lately. And even that's with, DeAndre Hopkins, and now he doesn't have that. Just no safety valve there. I don't know. And the secondary, a mess for Houston as well.
Yeah.
I need to be talked out of this game not being a blowout. The more you look at it, it's like, I don't know.
To follow up on the amount of pressure that Houston faced last week as well, Baltimore blitzed more than any team in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. So this could be a situation where Watson is running around and having to sort of improvise a little bit. And if that's the case, I don't know. I don't,
maybe that's
I don't like the idea of just banking on that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that turns into that's kind of like a coin flip. Maybe he just goes nuts because he's running around. But
right.
Do you really want to bank on that? I don't think so.
He's been sacked 20 times in the last 4 games. Wild.
That's the standard, though. Like that's the accepted normal for the Texans right now.
Well, and the thing is anything that the Chiefs did this past week, like, are the Ravens incapable of doing any of that?
No,
it just feels like a very similar matchup. And
yeah,
I mean, the Chiefs didn't have a 3-and-out until like late in the fourth quarter.
That's the thing. But like the Chiefs didn't look overly dominant. It was just a methodical head kicking. Like
you might get that this week.
Yeah, and they're more than capable of completely turning it into a smoke show too. It could be 40-0. Like it wouldn't surprise me either. All right, Sunday Night Football. Super Bowl rematch from a few years back. These two teams, whenever they play tight. You got the New England Patriots coming off their Week 1 ground and pound win over the Miami Dolphins, heading out to the Pacific Northwest, where they quite literally, Ricky, are pumping in the crowd noise this year.
Yeah, they are.
To take on the Seattle Seahawks. This game is like I said, Sunday night game. Seahawks 4-point favorites. The total currently sits at 45. Doesn't seem like weather's going to be an issue. Let's start with Ricky. Who do you got?
It's the second time since 2016 Patriots have been an underdog. And second time since 2011 team's been favored by at least 4 points over the Patriots. It's just weird. It's just weird seeing New England getting points in a situation, even on the road in Seattle. It's so if you want to give me the points with a Bill Belichick coach team, I'll take them. I do think that the Patriots, I think they can control the line of scrimmage here on both sides. I think, along the offensive line and along the defensive line, they're able to do that. So life's going to be a little bit more difficult for Russell Wilson this week. Obviously, he pulled another rabbit out of his hat against the Falcons, just torching them. What was he, 31 of 35 or whatever? I just think it's going to be a much tougher sledding this week if they're able to apply some of the pressure. Let that New England secondary. I still have concerns about their linebacking core and just in general other areas of that New England roster. But I think that secondary remains elite, and I just think that if I'm gonna get points in this situation, I will take them because I think ultimately this probably comes down to a field goal game.
I am taking the Patriots as well. Give me the points. Seahawks. You said going into this game, Mike, that the Seahawks-Patriots, they always play close games. The Seahawks in general always play close games. Their 13-point win over Atlanta was their first win by more than one possession in 14 consecutive games. And 14 of their last 18 games last year were by one possession. So they're always playing tight games, and I think that's going to be the case this week as well against the Patriots. The Seahawks allowed the 4th most rushing yards to quarterbacks last year. Cam Newton, he'll get his. That Seahawks offensive line has been historically bad. Patriots defense, historically good. They're going to put some pressure on Russell Wilson. Wilson will have a great game. He'll get his. He was 31 of 35 last week. That was against Atlanta. It'll be a little bit tougher against New England. It'll be a close game, and I'll take the Patriots to cover. I don't know if they'll win. They'll cover.
I think Seahawks. I didn't see a lot. This is going to be maybe a hot take. I wasn't thoroughly impressed by the Patriots last week. Like,
I wasn't either.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, they played a bad team. They beat the bad team. They did it fairly convincingly, but
the defense though, they look convincing.
Sure. All right, fine. Okay. But Fitzpatrick sucks.
Yeah, but Fitzpatrick throws missiles all the time.
I think every game
sometimes to the other team. Like he threw 3 picks. I don't think that's going to happen this week with Russell Wilson. Like Wilson is by far the best player on the field in this game. Like I don't even think that's a debate. And I look at what the Patriots did so well last week is run the ball. And I think teams are going to have a decision to make, right? It's going to be, are you going to put just a ton of guys in the box and make Cam Newton beat you throwing the ball? Maybe Cam Newton can do it. And this probably isn't even a reflection of Newton, but like, who exactly is he throwing to? So I think, if I'm Seattle, I'm coming in saying, you're going to beat us through the air, and we'll take our chances with our secondary, which is borderline elite, against your core of receivers, which is anything but elite. If the Seahawks lose this game because they give up 180 yards on the ground, shame on them. Like, take that away and make the Patriots, bust out a new wrinkle that, I guess everything is pretty much a new wrinkle in week 2 of a new quarterback, a new offensive system. But, I just think it's just a tough spot for the Patriots here. I think if the Seahawks can successfully take away the run game, which, with a coaching staff like that and a defense like that, they did a pretty good job of taking away the Falcons run game last week, which granted is different. But if they do that, I just don't see how the Patriots move the ball through the air against that secondary. And then on the other side, yes, the Patriots defense is very good. But I just think Russell Wilson presents, a unique amount of challenges, especially compared to Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I'll lay the points here. Don't love it because, again, these two teams play very close games. As Andre mentioned, they play very close. Seahawks play very close games in general. But actually, let me pull it up here. This means nothing, but I just think it's a hilarious stat. Seattle 16-5-2 in night games since 2007 or whatever. So nice. I don't know. I guess that's with crowd noise, though. Like, that's the thing. This is going to be really interesting. This is one of the bigger things of this week is, like, seeing what the Seahawks look like at home without the 12th man. So that's –
12th man.
It could be weird. I don't know.
I do wonder a bit how this New England offense is going to evolve as the season goes on, because it certainly feels unsustainable for a 16-game stretch, and it's also incredibly boring.
I know.
I found the majority of that game against the Dolphins, at least to the first half, to be pretty much a snooze fest.
A high school offense.
And I think that's what they want. Like, yeah. They want to turn this into a rock fight.
Here's the thing, though. You can already tell there's going to be times where McDaniels is going to pull something, out of his bag of tricks, and it's going to look awesome. Like,
you're getting a Julian Edelman pass this week.
Yeah, and they ran there's going to be a jump pass on 4th and 1. Like, I think they're already setting stuff up with what they're doing just to, do the end around or whatever.
Yeah, you're going to get a J.J. Taylor gadget play of some sort.
It's coming at some point. Like, and that is the, I guess that is the benefit of that offensive system as it is right now. There's a ton of motion. At some point, Edelman's going to come across and there's going to be reverse and they're going to throw back to Cam and N'Keal Harry's going to be running wide open down the sideline or James White on a wheel route. Like, there's going to be weird stuff that happens. I just don't know if it happens this week.
I think Cam's going to throw it a decent amount this week. I think that it felt like that was sort of establishing this like baseline, like, and that then now the wrinkles are going to start coming in, or week to week you're gonna. I don't think this team's offensive identity is going to be the same week to week. Like, I think there are going to be times when they do air it out a little bit more, and this was sort of just. It felt like they were coming out in the first round of a heavyweight bout and just sort of establishing the jab, and now we're going to see what they're able to get somebody up against the ropes.
And that very much is the benefit of Cam Newton. So.
I just don't see how you ever 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. How do you stop Cam?
It's true. Yeah,
that's been the story.
Well, you stop him on 1st down. Stop him on 2nd down. You don't let it, because that's the thing. I'd have to go back and watch it, but like, how many times were they in 3rd and 6, and what happened? That'll be something to kind of pay attention to this week. So we'll see. Yeah. All right, let's do locks and upsets. Andre, who's your lock?
My lock of the week is Arizona Cardinals. Or the Arizona Cardinals. They looked impressive in their upset victory over the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
That was the game of the week. That was so cool to watch.
Amazing roster.
What?
Did you say an amazing roster? Exceptional roster?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they have.
Transcendent roster. Generational roster.
Not generational or transcendent. It's an exceptional roster. And they are playing the Washington football team and are, 7-point favorites in some spots. But I'm still taking them. Washington looked good in their comeback victory, right? But offensively, they still have the fewest yards per play among any team in the National Football League going into Monday's action. And Dwayne Haskins, 55% completion percentage. I don't even know how they came back and won that game with those horrendous stats. But, yeah, Haskins, not too great. I'll also take, the fact that Kyler Murray is going up against a team that allowed the fifth most rushing yards to quarterbacks last year. So I think Murray's going to be able to use his legs, evade pressure, make plays. And if he decides to throw the ball, he has so many weapons. That roster is stacked. Give me Arizona.
I don't know if anything tickled me more over the weekend than seeing Eagles versus football team trending on Twitter.
I've already written the R word like 1,000 times. Copy, and I've almost said it. That's going to be a tough one to get used to. It is fun. It does look funny, yeah.
Seeing it versus football team, it's like an intern forgot to insert like something into a template for publishing.
Ricky, who's your lock?
My lock, I'm going to take the Chiefs, 8.5-point favorites over the Chargers. Pretty big spread. But, historically, Kansas City has just been dominating divisional opponents. Since 2015, 27-3 straight up and 21-8-1 against the spread against AFC West opponents. Really doing damage against the Chargers, who've just been a pretty poor bet the last couple of seasons in general anyways. And really when it comes down to the quarterback position, I think that discrepancy is worth 8.5 points.
Wait, Ricky, since what year was that, you said?
2015.
Wow.
So.
Cool. I'll take the Green Bay Packers as my lock over the Detroit Lions. Packers currently sit as 6-point favorites. This game's at Lambeau for whatever that's worth. One thing I saw, I was doing a little research on this from mlive.com, which is, what is the newspaper? I forget what the newspaper in Detroit's called. Whatever. mlive.com.
Free press.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. This is the lead to the story. Jeff Okudah was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Desmond Trufant is a former Pro Bowler. Justin Coleman is the highest paid nickel in the game. And then it goes on to talk about how all 3 of them are injured. So that's a problem for the Lions, is when you've invested that much into your secondary and already you're having injury problem. I think it's hamstrings for all of them. I could be wrong. So they may play, they may not. If they do, they're going to be hobbled. Good luck trying to slow down Devontae Adams, who is one of the 3 or 4 best wide receivers in football. Allen Lazard looks like a revelation for the Packers. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is healthy. He looks pretty good. A few big drops. He's got to get nip that in the bud. But Aaron Rodgers looks like a different quarterback in Week 1 against Minnesota. If he finally feels like he's got his feet set underneath them a little bit more often, he's taking the checkdowns when they're there. And they've got a very good trio of running backs, whether it's obviously Aaron Jones is very good. Jamal Williams came back and made pass catching a focus for him. And then in short yardage, you got A.J. Dillon. So a lot of issues there for Detroit to try to come up with and stop. So, it feels like a trap, but I'll lay the points and take the Packers. Ricky, who's your upset?
It's funny you mentioned that Lions secondary, that depleted secondary, because I'm going against the team that took advantage of that last week. I think the Bears get upset by the Giants. It just feels like a little bit of a letdown after that emotional win over Detroit. Detroit led 26-3 in that game before, as you mentioned, the injuries kicked in and Mitchell Trubisky sort of turned things around in the second half. Meanwhile, the Giants, man, they're a tough team to put a finger on. I just feel like if they're able to get any semblance of an offensive line, they could be pretty good offensively. They're stacked to the gills with weapons. Daniel Jones is decent, able to do some things with his legs. The Giants, 4-11 straight up, but 12-3 against the spread in their last 15 road games. So they do make life a little bit difficult. it's just a lot of points. It's 5.5 points is the spread right now. So I think the Giants not only can cover, I think they might win that one outright.
I will go with Jacksonville 11-point underdogs against Tennessee Titans. And mostly I'm taking the Jaguars here because of the Titans' field goal issues. Last season they were only 8 of 18 in field goals, 44% percentage. It was by far the worst in the league. So what do? They go get Steven Gostkowski, and then we talked about this earlier. He stunk too. There's something with the Tennessee field goal kicking cursed. I guess they're cursed or whatever, but that was a huge problem Monday night. It was a huge problem last season. Titans can't be missing field goals like that and expect to cover an 11-point spread, especially with Gardner Minshew. He was barely accurate against Indianapolis in week 1, 19 of 20. And he doesn't throw many picks. Last year, he only had 6 interceptions. Doesn't make many mistakes. He's not the greatest thing in the world, but I think they have enough in the tank to cover this 11-point spread. And last year, in one of the games, they held Derrick Henry to 44 yards in Jacksonville, Tennessee game.
So our upsets are now covering the spread. This is a point of contention.
I mean, it's a tough week to pick upsets.
This was a point of contention a couple of years ago where I got burned because I thought I misinterpreted the rules. So whatever. I mean, you mentioned.
No, fine. No, okay. I'll take Jacksonville to win that game as well.
It should be they're outright upsets.
So we have a group message going on where we put in our locks and upsets, and I just completely misread Ricky's, and I was ready to take the Giants as well. So I'm actually glad I didn't go first and really screw up.
I'm glad you agree with me.
Yeah, I'll take.
Anything like to add to that?
No. We should be able to do more. More than one person should be able to do it, but that's neither here nor there. I'll go Thursday night.
First come, first serve, dude.
I wasn't going to go Thursday night too, but I thought you would get mad because sometimes.
No, I know, and you are right, Andre. It is a tough week to do upsets, so I'll take Cincinnati. Like I said, not watching a second of either of the Browns or the Bengals last week, but I do know the Bengals played. I almost called them San Diego. Played Los Angeles pretty tough. This is not as good of a defense as the Chargers have, even without Derwin James. I think some good things to build on there. Taking a rookie quarterback to a Thursday night game seems like a terrible idea, especially on the road. But it's Cleveland. This is where you talk about week 2 being an overreaction week. This is me overreacting to a Cleveland team that I actually was higher on than probably a lot of people were. But screw it, I got to do it. As our guy Fred Nutter points out, Mayfield has more commercials than he has touchdown passes. So that's a good point by Fred. Yeah. So.
That book club commercial with Progressive was actually pretty good. That was his best one.
I think the one with him and Saquon, the Hulu one. Have you seen that one yet?
Yeah.
That one's pretty good too. So he even makes a point about the commercials. Tough look to make that point about the commercials and come out and get curb stomped in week 1. And now you got Joey Football coming in to wreck your house in week 2. So I'll take the Bengals 6-point road dogs to win outright on Thursday night.
I like it.
Living dangerously. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm excited about that Thursday game. It's going to be a good one.
I'm not, but whatever.
I think the Bengals are going to be a little bit of an issue this year for some teams. The Bengals, I think they're going to be we might see them a lot on our upsets of the week this year.
Yeah, they're talented. Burrow, I think Burrow's got that Manning thing where he's going to look terrible at times, but also he's going to do stuff where he's just awesome. So, which you kind of saw in that week 1 game.
They just feel like a backdoor cover waiting to happen every single week.
Yeah. All right. If you're still listening, still watching, especially if you're watching on YouTube, like I said, run over to iTunes or Spotify. Find the spread, Nest in the Spread on those podcast platforms. Download, rate, subscribe, review. 5 stars across the board. Give it to us. We need it. We want it. Got to have it. And then we'll continue to just pump out 5-star content. I think that's what we do. It's what that's right. What we're here for. So
the effort will be there.
Yeah, is what it is. All right, that's Andre. That's Ricky. I'm Mike. We'll be back again next week for the spread. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.